It is a journey that is both deeply personal and painfully familiar for hundreds of families right here in Kentucky and Indiana. For parents of children with autism, finding the services their kids need can feel like navigating a maze with no exit. I'm Brooke Hasch, and over the last year, I followed these families, sharing in their pain and struggles. And let's be honest, their anger at a broken system that's tearing families apart. Over the next half hour, we'll share their challenges and triumphs and just how far parents will go for the children they love.
His little handprints right here from when he was little, I save all of those. I can't ever get rid of him. And his little footprint.
This is a story of a mother's loss, but not the kind that might come to mind.
Now he's a grown man.
Rachel Moldovanu's son, Frankie, hasn't been home since before Christmas. It wasn't his choice, and it certainly wasn't what she wanted either. But Rachel said life at home was no longer an option for her 15-year-old son with severe autism.
When they're younger, they're easier to manage, honestly, physically.
Frankie is nonverbal and has benefited from a variety of community services since he was a toddler, thanks in part to a Kentucky Medicaid program for children with intellectual or developmental disabilities.
Frankie was one of the youngest kids at the time to ever receive the waiver, and the waiver was helpful for many years because it stepped in and it paid for what our insurance didn't pay for. And those services out of pocket are extremely expensive.
But as Frankie got older, his needs changed.
What you need at 4 years old is very different than what you need when you're 14 years old. When he got older, he would elope. He would get out of the house and they would find him 3 houses down, and sometimes he'd be clothed and sometimes he wouldn't. And you could just turn your back for a second. I could be folding clothes in a separate room and he could slip out the door.
Rachel gave up her career as a nurse 8 years ago to be with Frankie full time. Her husband's a physician at U of L.
Frank was always a very happy boy until he wasn't.
Frankie started to develop aggressive behaviors 2 years ago.
He's built like a linebacker. I mean, he's almost 6 foot tall and he's 230 pounds.
And with 2 young sisters at home,
we had to be aware of where he was at all times, where they were, because a lot of times it was very unpredictable as to when the behaviors would happen. He would either go after you or he would bite you or break a window or pull the cabinet door off. I don't want people to think that he is some kind of monster, because he's not. He's an amazing, wonderful child. He's my son. We love him so much. But it is a very hard thing to realize that when you're driving down the road and your son bites you and attacks you, and you almost have an accident, at some point you realize that you can't continue to live like you're living.
That was the case that landed Frankie at U of L Health's Peace Hospital in early December, and he's been there ever since.
And it's not like I have a child that can pick up the phone and call me and say, "Mom, I love you," or "I miss you." You know, I'm doing FaceTime where he blows me kisses and waves. And it shouldn't be that way.
But home is no longer safe.
I used to think that parents that sent their kids to facilities just didn't want to take care of them. And I was wrong. If Frankie comes back home, someone will get hurt again.
And peace?
Peace has been great. They really have.
Is not a long-term option.
They basically will change their medications around and call you and say it's time to come pick up your kid.
That was the call Rachel got more than a week ago before someone with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services stepped in and granted Frankie an extension.
That's where the state of Kentucky is failing families like ours.
Because there's not a place here for him.
There's not a place in Kentucky for him. There is not. We have exhausted every option in Kentucky.
The Michelle P. waiver that's provided Frankie so many services through the years does not provide a residential component.
He has to have someone one-on-one with him all of the time, and he will for the rest of his life.
And the only residential facility for a child under 18 is available to those in state custody.
Which means I'd have to give up custody of my child. And we said no. Frankie is very loved. He's ours. We just can't safely take care of him anymore. What are parents like us supposed to do?
His mom called everyone in Frankfort she knew, from lawmakers to attorneys and the department heads with Kentucky Medicaid, and got the same message.
And they all say the same thing. It shouldn't be this way. We wish there was more that we could do.
Each call was like losing her son all over again.
In the beginning, I thought, well, there's nothing in Kentucky. We can find something in Ohio or, somewhere within, a few hours driving distance. And it was made very clear that wasn't an option.
But giving Frankie up to the state isn't one either.
We will find a way. He's mine.
That was a year ago last December, and I've kept up with the Moldova news ever since. Days after their story aired, Frankie's mom got the call she'd been waiting for from a place Frankie could call home, but nowhere close to here. On a cold January morning in Louisville,
You ready to go?
a moment that could melt any mother's heart.
You want to give everybody love? Give Miss
That's 15-year-old Frankie Moldovanu, whose months-long stay at U of L Health's Peace Hospital
Ready to go to the car?
had come to an end.
Get your coat on.
Peace was a familiar place for Frankie. He'd been here before, but this time
All right, let's get in.
he wasn't going home, at least not to the one he knows.
See you guys. Love y'all.
Their SUV packed for the 11-hour journey to Wichita, Kansas, one they've looked forward to and dreaded all at the same time.
It's a bittersweet day.
Move-in day at Heart Spring, a place where children with severe neurodevelopmental disorders,
everything from autism to ADHD to learning disabilities,
can receive the care they need to become more independent. More than 500 kids across 17 states.
We get students from coast to coast. We have students from California to Kentucky, from Montana to Texas.
Some kids are here for outpatient services like speech therapy, as well as occupational and behavioral care.
1, 2, 3, switch.
Other kids need that care around the clock.
Every single day, we get so many phone calls for families that are desperate for services like Heart Spring.
Families like Frankie's. Rachel Moldovanu and her husband Bob made that call back in the summer, in search of a place their son with profound autism could call home when theirs was no longer a safe place.
I'll see you after school. I know.
Frankie has grown too big and too strong to control. There are just a handful of facilities across the country specialized as a home away from home for Frankie and kids like him.
Go check it out. It's the gym.
This is his first time on campus.
our school is for kids like Frankie who have had early intervention, but are now at an age where those behaviors are more challenging, more difficult for families and for school districts.
Frankie is also nonverbal,
Repeat after me.
like many of his classmates.
Every one of them is very different, and you have to have individual plans.
All done.
You want to high five?
Rachel says it was easier when he was younger, but as her son got older, his needs changed.
Everything was fine until puberty, and then it wasn't.
He became aggressive and unpredictable.
And when they start attacking you in your own home, it becomes an environment that you can't sustain for anyone.
And with two young sisters,
You have to provide a safe environment for all of your children.
his family never dreamed they'd have to come this far to make it happen.
It's really hard when it's your baby.
As a parent myself, I can't imagine the agony these parents go through. It's very difficult.
I'm very thankful for Heart Spring and for Kansas, but I'm very sad that I have to leave my child 700 miles away. And that's not an easy thing to do as a mom.
Inside Frankie's new room,
Hand me the pen.
they unpack.
We're trying to make it feel like his home.
The photos go up,
11, 12.
the clothes go in drawers,
I told you I'm an overpacker.
and then there's that UK blue.
It's important for everybody to know that Frank is not a Kansas Jayhawk. He is a Kentucky Wildcat through and through.
Within the hour,
Look at him.
Mom, Dad, and Frankie's grandparents were already getting updates from his care team.
Those will be things that we look at as we do the evaluation and assessment. You know, what his self-care looks like. Fine motor looked really good today.
Found his spot, sat down, and it's like he isn't new, like he's been there this whole time.
He played basketball. It was trampoline.
He's representing Kentucky well.
With move-in day coming to an end in Kansas,
How was your first day?
so does their time with Frankie.
Look, I got your old blankie from home. It's here. You gonna give Dad one more love?
Not goodbye,
I'm coming back.
but a see you later.
I love you. Come give me a kiss. You be great. Lord, please be with my baby. Keep him safe and happy. I love you.
If only a place like this existed back home.
My goal is to get Frankie's house built in Kentucky. Thank you all for taking care of my boy. I don't care if it takes me 10 years. It's gonna get done.
And that's a promise.
This is the start. This is day one.
Of course.
Love him like a mom would.
I know, I promise. I promise. I promise. Stay safe.
I know he's gonna be safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is yours. I'll walk with you.
Frankie and all the other kids in Kentucky deserve better.
Yes, they do. And Frankie is getting the care he needs in Kansas. And he is not the only one. I sifted through Kentucky state records from the past 2 years and found roughly 130 kids and young adults with severe intellectual or physical disabilities were sent out of state for residential care they can't get at home. That adds up to $13 to $14 million a year in Kentucky Medicaid funds going to out-of-state programs. And more kids have been added to that list since, like Reese Applegate, another Louisville teen with severe autism. After years of escalating behaviors and dead ends in Kentucky's system, her parents say they had nowhere left to turn. That is until they saw our story on Frankie's journey earlier this year. From the time she was born, Reese's parents, Miriam and Steve Applegate, say they knew something was different. By 18 months, they were searching for answers. And by age 5, they finally had one.
Right around 5 is when we were really like, obviously something's going on here and we need some help.
Without that autism diagnosis, help would have been out of reach.
That was just, completely unaffordable. Hundreds of dollars a week for therapy.
The Michelle P. waiver became their lifeline through elementary school. But then came middle school and COVID and puberty, a combination that sent everything spiraling.
And that's when things were just completely out of control. These tantrums would go on for hours on end, biting her arms, beating her head on walls, on the floor. These tantrums were so violent, attacking me in the car while I was driving, trying to hit her brother while I was driving. She took her hand and beat it on my passenger window and shattered it.
Their family life shifted into survival mode, the tag team system. One parent would attend a family event, the other stayed behind in the car to keep Reese safe.
You live in it long enough to where the judgment of others while you're out in public doesn't bother you as much, right? Because you're like, hey, look, I've got to do what I got to do. But certainly when those events would happen, right? Everybody else is stopping and staring.
For years, the waiver program, which helped pay for regular in-home therapy, kept Reese stable enough to remain at home.
That resource was probably the thing that kept her at home the longest.
But last winter, everything changed.
She broke the front windshield of one of our sitters' cars, right? Just bashed it in with her hand.
There were injuries to sitters, to family, even her grandfather.
She attacked him one time at dinner.
As Reese grew stronger, the violence escalated.
That was a hole in the wall also from where she had hit her head against the wall.
Their home was reinforced, but even that didn't last. They rotated ERs, psychiatric units waiting for beds, and at one point had to call 911.
They are completely not equipped to handle a situation like this.
That's when a psychiatrist at U of L Health's Peace Hospital offered a reality check.
The psychiatrist looked at us and said, it's time.
But time for what? Kentucky has no placement that fits Reese's needs. Some out-of-state facilities would not take her because of her aggression and low IQ. Others required families to surrender custody.
The idea also is you can give up custody of your child, and I absolutely will not do that. We will never do that. And it was a nightmare. No one could help me. Every number that I had from Kentucky Medicaid, they would say, I don't know how to help you with that. This isn't the right number.
The amount of effort that Miriam went through for all that was unbelievable.
Unreasonable.
I mean, it was unreasonable.
That's when a story you saw here on WHAS 11 about another Louisville teen, Frankie, changed everything.
Kansas came in when I had seen Frankie's story that you guys had done.
That facility in the story, Heartspring in Wichita, became their only hope. After months of paperwork and advocacy and help from state leaders, Reese was finally accepted. On July 30th, the family made the 11-hour drive, which ended in yet another outburst.
I walked in just shaking and I said, I looked at Brooke and I said, are you going to take her? Or are you going to ask us to leave? I was just freaking out about it. And they laughed and just said, most people cannot get kicked out of Heartspring. This is why you're here.
And for the first time in years, Reese is safe and she's happy.
She is so happy. I mean, you can hear chatter in the background.
Only 2 aggressive incidents in months instead of every day.
And they just love her. She's in a fantastic place that is really good for her.
There are now 7 Kentucky children living and learning at Heartspring. Reese's parents make the 700-mile trip as often as they can and say the staff there treat their daughter like their own.
There's not one person at Heartspring that I don't trust with Reese.
They hope Kentucky one day builds a place just like it, so families don't have to choose between safety and separation.
Well, Reese's parents say they hope state leaders recognize that gap in services and work toward bringing a similar highly specialized program here to Kentucky in the future. But recent visits to Frankfort left them feeling many of our lawmakers are out of touch. Frankie's mom, Rachel, front and center at both of them this year as senators promised to be a part of that fix.
I had no idea that this was the current state of our kids with autism in Kentucky.
There are holes in our services. Those are areas that we have to improve in, that we just have to. And it's not just in your case, but it's in all cases.
That was in February. The same committee of lawmakers invited Frankie's family and others back in November, along with representatives from Heartspring. More talk, but no real movement. Today, Rachel and her husband Bob told me Frankie is thriving in Kansas. It's been a little more than 10 months in.
Do you like being away from your child? No, it's heartbreaking sometimes. However, I don't worry about Frankie because he is loved here. He is cared for here.
Looking at Frankie Moldoveanu today, compared to a year ago, the transformation is undeniable.
He's happy. Just seeing him thrive and flourish with everyone here.
He's going out with friends for lunch, visiting the aquatic center, and playing sports.
Those things weren't possible before. And so to see him do something that a normal 16-year-old boy would be doing is wonderful.
Frankie's mom, Rachel, says it's made a huge difference in his physical health, his independence, and those aggressive behaviors.
While it's not a normal thing to have to send your child, several states away, I totally feel like it was a blessing in disguise for Frankie and his future. Every state needs to have a place for children with profound autism and profound needs. And not only a place for children, but for adults too. It's something that's not talked about, and it should be.
Well, it is the same struggle for adult children with autism. I visited a Southern Indiana family over the summer before the biggest move of their life. This is Skylar's story.
Come here, bud.
Skylar Hellman
Have a seat, have a seat, have a seat, have a seat, have a seat.
is rarely in the same place for long.
He is constant movement.
His parents, Lori and Josh, are never more than an arm's length away.
I think we've slept maybe every other day for the last couple months.
Do you want to sit there?
Skylar has profound autism, meaning he's on the severe end of the spectrum.
He's never uttered a word. He's been nonverbal his entire life.
Diagnosed as a toddler, he's been eligible for a variety of Medicaid-funded therapies to help him reach his full potential.
When he used to go to his ABA center, that was our 8 to 4 Monday through Friday reprieve, so we could do our jobs and have just a moment to clean the house or do anything.
Left foot, please.
That ended
Thank you.
when Skylar turned 22.
Families like ours know this is coming. This is like our doomsday.
The day Medicaid cut his funding and all the programs attached to it.
Medicaid decided that if they're not doing certain things by a certain age, they weren't going to ever do them. So they made the magic age of 22 of cutting off traditional programs and services. He could continue at the ABA program that we had him in, but we would have been out of pocket for almost the entirety of it. And it's like thousands and thousands of dollars for him to go every day.
Are there adult programs in Indiana?
There are none in Indiana, and there is one that I know of in Kentucky in the Louisville area, and the wait list we've been on for 3 years now, and there's no movement. So there is nowhere for him to go. There's no wait list for him to be on. He is home with us 24/7. So now we don't have a break.
We've had 15 people come in here for potential respite. They've all come into our home. They've all met Skylar. Not one of them came back.
It's not easy on a family, on a marriage, just on any scenario you could throw out there. And the sad thing is we are just one of hundreds of families just in this Kentuckiana area.
There we go, Bob. Good job. Keep it going.
Today, 1 in 31 kids in the U.S. are diagnosed with autism. Around 27% of them will need round-the-clock care the rest of their life.
Step up, step up. There's so much attention on early diagnosis, and rightfully so. But what happens next?
We're never gonna not be caregivers. This is our life until Josh and I pass away. And our biggest fear at night is what's gonna happen to Skylar when we're not here. We all come to the same conclusion, like, why isn't anybody helping us? No one else should have to rescue us, so to speak, but there has to be a better answer.
They've spoken to everyone at the state capitol who would listen.
When she had talked to lawmakers here in Indiana, she wrote the bill. She sent it to them. They didn't have to do any of the work.
Every time when I followed up, it was, well, this wasn't as pressing of an issue when we were in session as some other things, so this has to take a back seat.
They were spending their time voting on the official sandwich of the state of Indiana. So that just shows me where priorities lie.
It's just never at the top of anyone's mind. We're constantly left behind.
But moving forward means moving away.
We have to do what's best for us, and we're moving. We've settled on Colorado. They're the #1 state for adult services for those with disabilities. So we're packing up and we're going. He'll do horse riding there. He'll continue with his spelling program that we have here, and he has a practitioner there to work with him. There's a day program that's ready to accept him as soon as we get there. It's just getting there.
Yet another family moving hundreds of miles away to get the autism services so desperately needed in their home state.
This is the life that so many families are living behind closed doors. We just don't want to keep talking about it because people just can't relate. So the people who can relate, I just want them to know they're not alone.
Because it is isolating for everyone involved.
I would give anything for him to have a friend. That's going to make me emotional. Yogurt? It's just always been us. He's only ever had us.
I feel like we're his only buddies. And he is just the coolest dude in the world.
He has so much to offer the world. And I just want people to see the gifts that he has and just how much he can change the world just by knowing him.
Not quite yet.
Well, Skylar's family left Indiana for the Rocky Mountains of Colorado more than 4 months ago, and today told me their decision to move has changed everything.
Skylar, welcome to your new Colorado home.
For someone who's always on the move,
it's been quite a journey, but here we are.
This certainly was Skylar Hellman's biggest.
Push hard.
His parents, Lori and Josh Hellman, left what was considered their dream house in southern Indiana for a new start, one with a better future for their son.
It's just been such a welcoming experience to a community that we feel very much included in.
Here, let's do our free web walk.
That wasn't the case back home.
There were no options, no adult day programs, no waiting lists to be on. There was nothing for Skylar to have a productive future beyond the age of 22 in Kentuckiana.
But in Colorado,
within 6 weeks, Skylar was already approved for Medicaid for the waiver services, which included adult day programming. They sent us a list of 13 adult day programs that were able to accommodate him and his needs. I'm just blown away at the speed in which we got the resources that we needed and the vast amount of resources that are available.
Transportation, medical care, even time for parents and their kids to breathe.
To come over and give Josh and I a break and to give Skylar a break from us. I think that's the thing that gets missed. So I'm really excited for him to have peers his own age to spend time with.
They're making connections at every turn.
We have ventured out not only to see the new environment and the new surroundings, but we've gone to some of the restaurants that completely employ those with disabilities. People just want help out here, and they just lend a hand no matter, you don't even have to ask. They just were offering resources to us the minute we walked into the door and welcomed us.
I asked Lori if she'd ever consider moving back to Indiana.
For me, just living here 4 months, that's an easy no. I think there would have to be significant changes. Families shouldn't have to be considering these type of major life changes just to get the basic needs met for their profoundly disabled loved ones. It's unfair. And I think until maybe it personally affects everyone that's in power to make changes, nothing is gonna change. I just don't foresee that happening.
And these families are just 3 among hundreds who've been forced to cross state lines for autism care. Their stories make one thing clear. This is not a lack of love, effort, or advocacy from parents. It is a failure of the systems meant to support them. While other states find ways to build residential care, therapy programs, and long-term support, families here in Kentucky and Indiana are left waiting or leaving. The question now is not whether solutions exist. We know they do. It's when leaders will act. So families no longer have to leave their home to find them. Thanks so much for joining this special presentation on WHAS 11.